In this video, we are going to look at calculating the molar mass of each of the substances. Please make sure you have the handout in front of you titled Gram Formula Mass, as we're going to be calculating the molar mass of a few of these substances. We're going to start with potassium chloride. So here you have the formula, potassium chloride. So as you can see, there's one potassium, one chlorine, remembering that if there's no number written, ones are understood. So now what I need you to do is to go to your periodic table. Looking at your periodic table, you should see that the mass of potassium is 39.1 and the mass of chlorine is 35.45. All right? So again, what we're going to do now is take that mass. So there's one chlorine, multiply that times the mass of, one potassium, multiply it times the mass of the potassium, and that was 39.1. And the mass of the one chlorine was 35.45, right? And so, of course, 1 multiplied times that number is that number. And when you add that together, you should get the total mass as being 74.55 grams. All right, looking at the next problem, let's look at number 3. You have sodium sulfate. So sodium sulfate has a mass, the formula for sodium sulfate is Na2SO4. All right, so when you look at this formula, you see that there are 2 sodiums, 1 sulfur, and 4 oxygens. So now you're going to go to the periodic table, and you'll see that the mass of sodium is 22.99. So you're going to multiply the 2 sodiums times the mass, which is 22.99. Then when you go to your periodic table, looking, and you see that you have 1 sulfur, and the mass of 1 sulfur is 32.07. So now we're going to take this 1 and multiply that times the 32.07. Now as you look at oxygen, there are 4 oxygens. We're going to take that oxygen 4 and multiply it times the mass, which is 16. And so once you do the math, you add them up, you should get a mass of 142 grams. All right? All right, so now let's take a look at a hydrate. If you remember the hydrate, I told you that's where you'd be able to see where off to the side it would have a dot and then a number and then water as part of the formula. So right here, you have copper 2 sulfate. All right, so once again, we have a hydrate. This lets us know we have that hydrate. Let's go ahead and calculate the molar mass or the gram formula mass of copper 2 sulfate. In the previous video, we calculated that the mass of water is 18. So make sure you hold on to that. Actually, it was 18.02 grams. So hold on to that information because we're going to use that to calculate the total mass of this hydrate. All right, so we now have 1 copper, 1 sulfur, and 4 oxygen. All right, so now you're going to go to the periodic table. And on your periodic table, you should see that the mass of copper is 63.55. So we're going to multiply that 1 times the 63.55. Then you have the mass of sulfur, which is 32.07, and the mass of oxygen is 16. When you do the math, 63.55, 32, 0.07, and 64. So you're going to take those numbers and add them together. Give me just a moment. I have my calculator here in front of me. So as you add those numbers together, you should get a mass of 159.62. Again, that's 159.62. But we're not done yet. We're now going to take this mass and multiply it times 5 moles of water. So we're going to take the 5 and multiply it times the mass of water. And for that number, you should get 90.1. So when you add your 159.62 plus your 90.1, you should get a total mass of 249.72 grams. All right, and that is the gram formula mass. So this is how we calculate the molar mass of a substance. And so I want to do one more example. Now we're going to look at a compound that uses parentheses, or that has parentheses as part of the formula. So let's take a look at calcium nitrate. We're going to be looking at number 4, calcium nitrate. This works the same as all the others, but just making sure that you don't allow the parentheses to throw you off. So right here, we have 1 calcium. Remember, we distribute through the parentheses, so you have 2 nitrogens, and you have 6 oxygens. So you're going to go to the periodic table, and you'll see that calcium has a mass of 40.08. Nitrogen has a mass of 14.01, and oxygen has a mass of 16. All right, so now you're going to multiply all of that through, and your total mass rounded to the nearest whole number. Once you multiply and add your numbers together, you should get a mass of 164 grams. And if you notice on the handout, most of your masses are rounded to the nearest whole number. Some masses are not. Do not get thrown off by that. So if when you're working out your homework, if you get the correct answer, but you notice that the answer on the handout or the answer key is rounded to the nearest whole number, and then some of them are not, don't let that throw you. You need to be concerned that you have the basic concept on how to count the number of atoms, take the mass, multiply them times the number of each atom that you have, and then add them together to get the total molar mass of each substance. All right, thanks a lot.